Chapter 1. The Lie of Motivation. They told you discipline was a feeling, that one morning you would wake up and the fire would simply be there. The motivation, the hunger, the will to become the man you keep promising yourself you'll become. They told you it would arrive on its own, like weather. And so, you did the most dangerous thing a man can do. You waited for it. You waited for Monday. You waited for the new year. You waited for the mood to strike, for the stars to align, for some future version of yourself to show up with more energy and more resolve than the man standing here tonight. And while you waited, you still became someone. That is the part no one warns you about. You do not get to choose whether you are shaped. Time shapes every man, awake or asleep, willing or not. The only choice you are ever given is this. Do you hold the blueprint, or do you hand it to the world and let it draw you into whatever shape is convenient? Every man alive is under construction. Right now, tonight, the hammer is falling whether you picked it up or not. For most, the world holds the hammer. Their habits were installed by accident. Their appetites were designed by men who profit from them. Their reactions were trained into them by people who are no longer in the room. And they call this just the way I am, as if it were fate, when it was only assembly. So let us begin by killing the first lie. The world sells you the surface, the look, the pose, the confidence you can put on like a coat and take off at the door. Stephen Covey had a name for this. He called it the personality ethic, the belief that success is a technique, a mask, a surface you polish until it shines. But a polished surface over a hollow frame is just a better-looking collapse. Beneath the surface lives something the mask can never fake. Character. And character is not performed for an audience. It is built, quietly, daily, in the hours when no one is watching and no one is applauding, and there is no reason to do the right thing except that you have decided to be the kind of man who does. That is the whole game, not the performance, the building. And here is the truth that will govern everything else I tell you tonight. It comes from James Clear, and once you understand it, you cannot ununderstand it. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Read that again in your mind. Because every man reading it wants to argue with it, and every man who argues with it stays exactly where he is. Wanting more has never changed a single life. Everyone wants. The wanting is not rare. The broke man wants wealth. The weak man wants strength. The lost man wants direction. Desire is the cheapest thing in the world. Every single person has it in abundance, and it moves nothing. What is rare is a man who has stopped trusting his desire and built a machine instead, a system, a set of daily actions that run whether he feels inspired or not, whether the mood came or didn't, whether the fire showed up or stayed home. Because motivation is a guest. It arrives late. It leaves early. It never comes when you need it most, and always shows up after the work is already done. Build your life on the guest, and your life will be as unreliable as the guest. The sovereign man does not wait for the guest. He builds the house. He builds the furnace. He builds a structure so solid that whether or not he feels the fire on any given morning becomes completely, gloriously irrelevant. So stop waiting for the fire. We are going to build the furnace. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly how. Chapter 2. The Gap. Nearly 2,000 years ago, there was a man born into slavery. His leg was broken by a master and left to heal crooked, so that he limped for the rest of his life. He owned nothing. He controlled almost nothing. By every measure the world uses, he was powerless. His name was Epictetus, and the philosophy he taught from that broken body would one day be studied by emperors, generals, and kings, men who had everything he lacked and who knelt before the freedom he had found. His central teaching can be carried in a single sentence. It is not events that disturb us. It is our judgments about events. The insult does not wound you. Your judgment that it was an insult wounds you. The loss does not break you. Your story about the loss breaks you. Between the world and your suffering, there is always a step in the middle, and that step is yours. Centuries later, Covey took this ancient fire and gave it a modern shape. He said, "Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a gap, a space, and in that space lies the single greatest power a human being will ever hold, the power to choose your response." Most men have no gap. For them, there is only stimulus and reaction, welded together, instant and automatic. Insult, then rage, craving, then surrender, fear, then retreat. Someone pulls the string, and they dance every time, exactly on cue, and then they call it their personality. That is not a personality. That is a reflex wearing a man's face. The sovereign man widens the gap. He builds a room between the trigger and the response, and he learns to stand inside that room. In that half-second of stillness, before the reaction fires, before the old pattern runs, lives every ounce of freedom you will ever possess in this life. Covey called the man who lives in that gap proactive. Not busy, not loud, not constantly moving. Proactive means something precise, the power to choose your response rather than be chosen by your reflex. Response, ability, the ability to respond instead of merely to react. And he drew it as two circles. Picture them. An outer circle, wide, and a smaller circle nested inside it. The outer circle holds everything you care about but cannot control: the economy, the weather, the past, what other men think of you, what was said about you in a room you were never in, the decisions of people who do not answer to you, all of it real, all of it heavy, and none of it yours to move. The inner circle holds only what you actually control: your effort, your standards, your response, your attention, your next single action. It is a smaller circle. It always looks too small, and it is the only real estate you will ever truly own. Now watch what most men do. They pour their entire lives into the outer circle. They rage about what they cannot change. They refresh the news. They argue with strangers. They rehearse old wounds. They spend every unit of their energy on the one region of life where energy accomplishes nothing. And then they wonder why they feel so powerless, so tired, so small. Of course, they feel powerless. They abandoned the only place their power was real. The sovereign man does the opposite. He withdraws his attention from the noise of the outer circle and pours everything he has into the inner one, into what is his, into the next action, the next standard, the next response that he and he alone controls. And here is the strange law that follows. When you feed the inner circle, it grows. Master what is yours, and the border of what is yours begins to move outward. The man who governs himself perfectly begins slowly to influence the world around him, not by chasing it, but by becoming someone the world cannot ignore. This is the first law of the self, and every other law depends on it. You answer to no one because you have learned first to answer to the gap. Chapter 3. The Man in the Mind, 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Covey's next principle is deceptively quiet. Begin with the end in mind. Every single thing that has ever been made was made twice, once in the mind and once in the world. No cathedral was ever raised that a man did not first see behind his own eyes. No blade was ever forged that did not exist first as an intention. The physical creation always follows the mental one, always, without exception, which means the most important work of your life happens in a place no one can see. Before you build the body, you build the vision of the body. Before you build the discipline, you build the image of the disciplined man. The first creation is invisible, and most men skip it entirely, then wonder why their lives feel like something that happened to them rather than something they made. So, do not ask what you want to do. That is the small question. Ask the large one. Who are you becoming? Because you are becoming someone right now, with or without a plan. And here, James Clear drives the blade all the way to the handle. Most men try to change from the outside in. They chase outcomes, lose the weight, make the money, finish the book. And they fail again and again in the same exhausting loop because they are trying to change the fruit while ignoring the root. There are 3 layers to any change. The outermost is the outcome, what you get. Beneath it is the process, what you do. And beneath both, at the very center, is the root, your identity, who you believe you are. Change built on outcomes is a candle in the wind. It burns as long as the motivation lasts and dies the moment life gets hard. But change built on identity is stone, because a man does not have to force himself to act in line with who he believes he is. It simply becomes what he does. Hear the difference. One man says, "I'm trying to quit." Another says, "I'm not a smoker." One says, "I'm trying to write a book." Another says, "I am a writer, and writers write." The first man is fighting himself every single day. The second man has ended the war because there is nothing to resist when the action is simply who you are. You do not try to train. You become a man who does not miss training. You do not try to be disciplined. You become a man for whom discipline is simply the baseline, the floor, the least of what he expects of himself. The goal was never to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal was never to run a race. The goal is to become a runner. The outcome is a souvenir. The identity is the prize. So begin with the end in mind, but understand now what the end truly is. The end is not a number on a scale or a figure in a bank. The end is a man, a specific man, clear in your mind, whom you are building action by action out of the raw material of your days. See him, know him, and then go make him real. Chapter 4. The Vote. But how is an identity actually built? Not declared, not announced, not tattooed on the arm, or written in a journal on New Year's morning and forgotten by February. An identity is voted into existence. This is the most powerful idea in everything Clear ever wrote, and I want you to hold it in your hands like something heavy. Every action you take is a vote for the type of man you are becoming. Everyone, no exceptions. When you rise before dawn and do the work, you cast a vote for the disciplined man. When you hit snooze and roll over, you cast a vote for the man who breaks his own word. When you keep the promise you made to yourself in private, you vote for the man of integrity. When you break it quietly, telling yourself no one will know, you know. And the vote is counted anyway. No single vote builds the man. That is the trap that fools the weak. They do the workout once, feel no different, and quit, as if one vote were supposed to win the election. It was never meant to. One vote changes nothing. But you are not casting one vote. You are casting thousands, every day, every week, for years. And the man you will be in 5 years is being elected right now in the ballots you think are too small to matter. They all matter. Everyone is counted. Everyone is evidence. Because that is what these actions truly are. Evidence. Each time you act like the man you intend to become, you leave behind a piece of proof. Proof to the only jury that matters, yourself. Do enough disciplined things, and you cannot help but begin to believe you are a disciplined man. Not because you decided to believe it, but because the evidence has become overwhelming. This cuts both ways, and you must be honest about the second edge. Every time you act against the man you intend to be, you also leave evidence. You are teaching yourself, vote by vote, that your word means nothing, that your standards are negotiable, that you are the kind of man who says one thing and does another, and a man who has taught himself that lesson will carry it into every corner of his life. So the question is never really, should I do this one small thing? The question is, which man am I voting for right now with this choice that feels too small to count? It counts. It always counted. You are not trying to be perfect. Perfection is not on the ballot, and no man ever achieved it. You are trying to win the majority. to cast enough votes for the man you intend to become that the outcome is no longer in doubt. To lose an election, you must lose most of the votes, and no man who casts ballots for himself every single day, most days, is ever truly in danger of losing. Choose the man. Then spend your life voting him into existence. Chapter 5. The Compound, 1600 to 2030. Now comes the hardest test, the one that breaks more men than any other. Not because it is complicated, because it is quiet. 1% better today does almost nothing. You will not see it. You will not feel it. Tomorrow, you will look the same in the mirror, feel the same in your chest, carry the same doubts you carried yesterday, and the day after that, and the week after that. This is the valley. The long, silent stretch where you are doing the work, and the world hands you nothing in return. No applause, no transformation, no visible reward, just the work and the silence and the growing suspicion that maybe none of it is working at all. James Clear called this the plateau of latent potential. Latent, meaning hidden, present, but not yet visible. The value of your work does not arrive on the schedule you expect. It accumulates invisibly, storing itself up, degree by degree, in a place you cannot see. Think of ice. Water sits in a freezing room. You watch it drop from 36 degrees to 35, to 34, to 33, and nothing happens. It is still liquid, still water. A fool watching those 4 degrees would swear the cold is accomplishing nothing at all. And then it hits 32, and the water becomes ice. Nothing about that final degree was more important than the others. It was not the special one. Every degree before it did equal work, silent, invisible, necessary work. But the breakthrough only appeared at the end, and the man who quit at 33 degrees, exhausted and convinced it was hopeless, walked away 1 single degree from the transformation he was begging for. This is why most men never break through. Not because they lack the strength, because they cannot tolerate the silence. They demand a receipt for every effort, and when the receipt does not come fast enough, they quit. Always in the valley, always before the line bends, always 1 degree short. The sovereign man is built differently. He has made peace with the valley. He does the work not because he sees the result, but because he trusts the mathematics. He knows the effort is being stored. He knows the line is going to bend. And he knows the men who quit are simply the ones who could not survive the boredom of doing the right thing for long enough. Because that is the real enemy here. Not pain, boredom. The greatest threat to your becoming is not that the work is too hard. It is that the work becomes routine, unglamorous, repetitive, and quietly abandoned in favor of something that feels new. The men who master anything are the ones who fell in love with repetition, who could do the same disciplined thing on the 99th day with the same commitment as the first. Novelty is for amateurs. Consistency is for men who intend to win. Trust the compound. Do the quiet work in the silent hours. Survive the valley. And let time do the one thing time always does for the man who refuses to quit. The line will bend. It always bends. Your only job is to still be there when it does.
Chapter 6. The Silent Quadrant. There is a reason most men never survive that valley, and it is not weakness of will. It is a failure of priority. They are pouring their hours into the wrong things and calling it busyness. Covey gave us a tool to see this clearly. He said every task in your life can be measured by 2 questions. Is it urgent, and is it important? Urgent means it demands attention now. It screams. The ringing phone. The sudden crisis. The message that must be answered this instant. Important means it actually matters to the man you are building. It moves you toward the end you hold in your mind. Cross those 2 questions and you get 4 quadrants. There is the urgent and important, the true crises, the fires that must be fought. There is the urgent and unimportant, the endless noise that screams for you but leads nowhere. There is the neither urgent nor important, the pure waste, the scrolling, the numbing, the hours that vanish and leave nothing behind. And then there is the fourth, the important but not urgent, the quadrant of the sovereign man. This is where your training lives, your study, your planning, your rest, your relationships, the building of your body and the sharpening of your mind, everything that truly matters, and nothing in it ever screams. No deadline forces it, no crisis announces it, no one holds you to it but you. And that silence is exactly where sovereignty is won or lost. Weak men live at the mercy of whatever screams loudest. They spend their whole lives reacting to the phone, to the demand, to the fire, feeling busy, feeling important, feeling exhausted, and building nothing. They mistake motion for progress and urgency for meaning. The sovereign man protects the silent quadrant with his life. He does the important thing precisely because nothing is forcing him to. He trains when no one is watching. He studies when there is no exam. He builds when there is no deadline, because he understands that the most important work in any life is the work that never announces itself. And there is one form of that work men neglect above all others. Covey called it sharpening the saw. Picture a man sawing through a great log. He has been sawing for hours and the blade has gone dull, and each stroke now cuts less than the one before. Someone tells him to stop and sharpen the blade, and he says, gasping, "I don't have time to sharpen. Can't you see I'm too busy sawing?" That man is every exhausted person you have ever met. Renewal is not weakness. The care of your body, the sharpening of your mind, the steadying of your spirit, the tending of your closest bonds. These are not distractions from the work. They are what keeps the blade sharp enough to do the work at all. Neglect them, and every hour of effort returns less and less, until you are sawing with everything you have and cutting almost nothing. The sovereign man sharpens the blade before it goes dull. He guards the source of his power before it runs dry, not after the collapse, but long before it. He puts first things first. And the first thing, always, is the man doing the cutting. Chapter 7. The Architecture. Now understand something that will save you years of failure. You will not out-discipline a bad environment, not forever. No man does. Willpower is a battery, and every temptation you resist drains a little more of it, until late in the day, tired and depleted, you finally give in, and then you blame your character, when the truth is, you simply designed a life that required you to fight all day long. The sovereign man does not rely on willpower. He is far too smart for that. Instead, he engineers his world so that the right action becomes the easy one, and the wrong action becomes hard. He does not depend on being strong in the moment. He builds a structure that does not require him to be. James Clear gave 4 laws to make any behavior almost inevitable. Learn them, and you stop fighting yourself. Make it obvious. You cannot follow a cue you never see. So put the book on your pillow, the weights beside the door, the distraction in another room, powered off, buried in a drawer, out of sight and out of reach. Do not trust yourself to remember the good habit. Design your space so it stares you in the face, and design it so the bad habit is buried where you would have to work to find it. Make it attractive. Bind the thing you should do to the thing you already want. Let the discipline sit beside the reward, and surround yourself with men who already live the way you intend to live, because a man rises or falls to the standard of the men around him, always, whether he admits it or not. Choose that circle, like your life depends on it. It does. Make it easy. Shrink the habit until refusing it becomes absurd. Not write the book, open the document, not train for an hour, put on the shoes. Master the art of showing up, because a habit must exist before it can be improved, and you cannot improve a thing you never begin. 2 minutes, that is the price of entry. Pay it every day and watch what grows from it, because the man who shows up on the smallest day is the man who is still standing on the largest one. Make it satisfying. What is rewarded is repeated. So mark the chain, track the streak. Give yourself the immediate signal that says, this counted, this was seen, do it again. And when you break the chain, because you will, because every man does, obey the single rule that separates the disciplined from the doomed. Never miss twice. One miss is an accident, a bad day, a fever, a life that got in the way. It means nothing. But 2 misses in a row is no longer an accident. It is the quiet beginning of a new pattern, a new identity, the wrong man moving back into the house. So miss once if you must, and then let the very next action be a vote to return. You do not spiral. You do not mourn. You reset immediately, and you continue. This is the law that guards all the others. Do not depend on your discipline. Build a world so well designed that discipline becomes the path of least resistance, and then walk that path every day until it is the only path you know. Chapter 8. The Furnace. So here is everything now, forged into a single blade. Widen the gap, the space between what happens to you and how you respond, and live inside it, so that you answer to no one, not even your own reflex. Decide the man you intend to become. See him clearly. Hold him in your mind, and then let every small action be a vote to elect him into existence. Trust the compound. Do the quiet work in the silent hours. Survive the long valley where nothing seems to change, and stay standing until the line finally bends. Put first things first. Guard the silent quadrant where all real building happens, and sharpen the blade before it ever goes dull. And engineer your world. Make the right path obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, so that you no longer have to depend on being strong. You will simply have built a life in which strength is the natural result. You are always under construction. That never changes, and it never will. From the day you were born to the day you die, the hammer is falling, and the man is being shaped. What changes tonight is who holds the hammer. For most men, the world holds it. Their habits were installed by accident, their appetites designed by strangers, their reactions trained by people long gone. They are being built every day by hands that are not their own, and they will call the result their fate. You are done with that. Tonight you take the blueprint back. Tonight you pick up the hammer. Tonight you stop waiting for a fire that was never going to come on its own, Tora. And you understand, finally, the truth that changes everything. You were never meant to wait for the fire. You are the furnace. Answer to no one.